I'm really excited about today's topic because I get to speak with Mariana Ruiz on how to sell a product on your webinar when you don't even have a product to sell. Huh? Say what? You'll just have to listen. It's April Reed here, and you're listening to episode 11 of the Webinar Hustlers Entrepreneur Podcast. Let's go.
Want to work less and sell more? Welcome to the Webinar Hustlers Entrepreneur Podcast, the podcast to help you scale up and take your business to the next level with webinars that sell for you. Each episode focuses on the money mindset, online marketing, and sales strategies to get you more leads and convert leads to sales, all with webinars. And now your host, business and webinar strategist, April Reed.
Mariana is a certified business coach and consultant that helps you create a profitable business through high-level marketing and sales strategies in combination with Facebook ads to expand their reach and convert their audience to clients so they can create change in the world while living the life they desire. She has been featured in various podcasts, blogs, and online courses, including the Huffington Post, Today.com, and the Millionaire Insider Extravaganza. Through working with hundreds of businesses, she has empowered them to earn more so they can live the life that they desire. Thank you so much, Mariana, for being on the show. I'm excited for you to be here. And how are you doing today?
Thank you. Thanks for having me, April. It's going awesome. I'm so excited to talk about beta launching because I think it's so important when we're starting off getting something going as far as like a passive income product in our business. So I'm really excited for this.
Oh, I love that. Passive income. We all want passive income, right? Especially moms.
Totally.
Okay. So now, what if you're not actually ready to get your beta launch out there? You know, you don't really have anything to sell physically right now. I mean, do you have to have something ready to go?
Absolutely not. So I have been doing coaching for a long time. Like the first 2.5 years of my business, I only did one-on-one coaching. Probably like 2 years, the first 2 years. And then I was like, okay, let me dabble a little bit into doing something passive just because I had sold out my program. Like the client load was getting to be a little bit too much with my little kids. I have a 2 and a 3-year-old. And I was like, I need something that's going to generate some income without me physically being there. So I just treated it like another client. Okay. And so what I did is I didn't have anything, right? So I just had like a welcome video and a little bit of the first module ready. And then I sold it. And the reason I did it that way is because when I first started my health coaching business, I had done a webinar launch and it failed miserably. I mean, I put a lot of time into it. I even spent money on Facebook ads. I did the whole fill up formula. So I had traffic going to a blog post and an upsell there to join my email list. And I had put a lot of effort, a lot of time, a lot of money. I created an entire course and never sold it. And I know that if any of your listeners are in that spot or have experienced something like that, it's so discouraging. And so what I did this second time around when I was really looking at building something passive, like better and how to do like the version 2.0 of that was let me see if it sells first. Because if I can sell it, I can just get on the phone every week or either through live webinars or how I did it, I just recorded the videos as I went along, just like I would get on the phone every week with a coaching client. And when I made that shift, that made the world of difference because I didn't go in investing thousands of dollars and hours and months of work. It was simply like, will this sell? Yes or no? If not, cool. I'm not going to waste any time or money. I'm just going to go on to the next thing. Will this thing work? Right? Or do I need to make some small tweaks to the sales presentation, right? Like the webinar or whatever. But I feel like that was a very valuable learning lesson in the beginning because I did try a webinar. It totally flopped, but I did end up getting some of those people on the phone and converted to 2 private clients. So like,
wow.
I think another piece of that lesson is if you have a failed webinar, you can still recover the cost if you wanted to do something privately, like get people on the phone one-on-one, right? That worked for me in the beginning. But then what ended up happening is I got like deterred from ever trying to do a webinar or spending time on doing a course. And so it was just through those lessons that I really was like, how can I do this smarter? And that's what I came up with.
Yes,
of course, through mentors too. Mentors and coaches did support me in that too. So it wasn't like all me, but it felt a lot lighter.
Yes, I would say it does sound lighter. I mean, just you talking about it, it's like, oh, that sounds a lot lighter. And I'm getting out of my own head about doing a beta course and it's not necessarily ready. You just do it as like you're coaching one-on-one. Because when you're coaching one-on-one, you don't have all the content available per se.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely empowering in that retrospect. What would you say was the mindset shift, if there was any that you had to do to be okay with that? Because I would think that would be kind of scary.
Yeah. I think the mindset shift was remembering that I was already doing that with my coaching clients, right?
Okay.
Like I was already receiving payment and then delivering over a course of time. I think that was the biggest shift, because for me to think about receiving payment and not having the product delivered felt really scary. But when I remembered that, like, this is what I've been doing with my one-on-one clients, it's just positioned as a course rather than, one-on-one, it made the world of difference for me.
Perfect. I love that. And so now, how did people learn about this beta course? I mean, I heard you say the fill up. Did you do a blog post or were you using Facebook ads?
So that was the very first time I ever launched a course, and I didn't do anything that fancy this time. So this time, all I did is I did some market research calls. So I did about 10 calls, and everybody that I got on the phone after I did the market research, I offered them an opportunity to join the course at the beta price. And actually, one of those people, only 1 out of 10 said yes. And so part of me was like, oh my gosh, I don't know if that's enough for me to really feel like this is a 100% go. However, I ran it in the summer months where, like, in my business, I've been in business for a while, right? And in my business, my income has gone down in the summertime. It's like part of my business. So I kind of knew that for my market, that was a rough time. So I didn't let the 1 out of 10 discourage me. I already had enough data and enough footing to be like, this is average for my market at this time of the year. And the other thing, when I asked them, hey, do you want this? A lot of them said, like, well, this is not a good time, right? Like, most of my clients are moms, and so they have their kids from the summer, and it's just too much to also add on doing a whole course. And so I didn't let that discourage me, and I just went ahead and I did a webinar. So then I did the webinar, and I didn't do a traditional webinar like I had in the past. In the past, I've done webinars that are like slides and, just like a whole 9 yards. This time, because it was beta, I simply did the entire webinar format, but as a Facebook Live.
Okay.
And
wow.
Again, like, this was me being like, what is the least effort I can put in, but also get the result that I want? And so I did it as a Facebook Live. I did have a messenger bot to help me to message people. I did it through email and a messenger bot. So they kind of had like reminders from both places. And my list was only 37 people.
Wow.
It was really small. I didn't spend a lot of money on Facebook ads. I only targeted my warm traffic, and I spent $164 on Facebook ads. And I think this was another bit of learning that I would love to share with people is, like, the first time you run a webinar, you don't need to pour hundreds of dollars into ads. Like, you're trying to just prove the concept, and then you can scale. But I didn't have like an earnings per lead that I already knew going in. And so I wanted to see what was my earnings per lead. How much profit could I expect? But if I pour, this is just from mistakes I've made, right? So in the past, I have done a webinar where I poured like $1,000 in, and I only made back, I think, like 40% of that. Like, so I made back like 400. And 400 on a webinar sounds great, but when you invest 1,000, that's actually really crappy.
Yes.
So this is just through lessons, right? Like things that I have learned along the way. And so this time I was like, how can I make this really solid? And so I said, I'm going to use the audience I know knows me. So I used warm audience, small ad budget, and I had it going directly into the funnel so that they were opting in for the webinar, and the webinar just linked them to the Facebook Live that I was going to do. I had like scheduled it.
Great. There was a lot of good nuggets in what you just said. And just for people who are listening, because I know I just currently finished some market research, and you hit on a lot of the things people are struggling with as far as implementing webinars. And, you know, the first thing you said, you had 10 market research calls. You only converted one, but you kept at it. And I think when you're just starting out, or maybe when you get beat down over and over and over again, it's just so easy to give up and kind of get in your own head and say, well, maybe this entrepreneur thing isn't for me. Maybe I should just get a job. And you just have to keep going, keep trying, keep tweaking, keep changing. And importantly, do your research, get them on the phone, see what it is that they like. The second thing you brought up was seasonal. I think that is so smart that you were, you know, able to recognize like, hey, wait a minute, based on my market, I see during the summertime that my sales go down. And so to my listeners, so if you're doing anything, launching a course, an ebook, a webinar, whatever, and you're not seeing the results that you want, maybe looking at those outside factors, you know, if you're targeting moms, is it the summertime and now their kids are home and they just don't want to have to deal with one more thing to deal with? So definitely. A third point you brought up was, and I love this, I love it, doing the least to get results. And I know on my calls, it was like, oh, all the equipment I have to purchase. And then it has to be the best presentation because I've been on other people's webinars and it's just so perfect and streamlined. And, you know, those people that the webinars that we're viewing have probably been doing it for years. They probably have a team. And I would doubt that they just started out that way. So I love how you're like, you know what, I'm just going to do a Facebook Live, test it. Why spend money on, you know, EverWebinar or GoToWebinar or whatever else? Let's just see if the concept worked. You know, it may not work. And then I spent that money for nothing.
Totally. And you don't know how much you can invest on a specific webinar until you have data and sales, right? So like, so important. And again, these are all my mistakes. My very first webinar, I had invested in Webinar Jam, and like, you know, I found out I hated Webinar Jam, and that webinar that I had spent $1,000 on, like that webinar, I did it on Zoom because I was like, I know and I can trust Zoom. And when I do this webinar again, I'm going to do it on Zoom because I've done several webinars on Zoom and it has always been reliable for me. So like, again, trial and error, but also not afraid to like be outside the box, right? Like I didn't get GoToWebinar. I didn't get the most expensive, you know, Mac Daddy thing, but I got something that was reliable and worked for me.
Right. Exactly. And like you said, you only had 37 people on your email list.
For the launch. Yeah.
For the launch. Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's encouraging. I think, you know, yes, you want to be growing your email list, but you can start from zero.
Well, in every launch, you really start from zero, right? Like one mistake too from past launches is bombarding your email list, your entire list with an offer. So one thing I've learned to do is really segment the list, right? I will send my email list, hey, do you want to come on this webinar? And I will invite them all in. But if they choose not to join me, that's totally fine. So I had, because I was also launching it with the Messenger bot, I had 37 on the Messenger bot and 33 on the email list. Some of those were duplicate, but not all of them. So some people, it was weird because I had never run the Messenger bot before. So like the first half I had it where like they had to do both. And then the second half I was like, let's just see if they'll do only the Messenger bot. So at the most I had 60 people on this list, maybe 70, which is still tiny.
Right. Now, just for our listeners, why don't you explain a little bit what a Messenger bot is? Because I know it's Facebook new thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the Messenger bot is a new thing on Facebook. It allows you to send messages automated to people, and you can do it over a period of time. So it's just like if you were to use like ActiveCampaign or ConvertKit or MailChimp or any of those programs to email people automatically, it's the same thing, only it comes through as a Facebook message. It was really new. Like when I launched this, it had only been out for a few months. And so people would have to confirm in Facebook. And I feel like that kind of lowered a little bit my conversion rate, just because people were like, hold on, what is this? Why are you going to Facebook? So it was really new at the time. Now it's a little bit more mainstream. Like people are catching on to it a little bit more. But I think that's what a Messenger bot is. It basically sends them automated messages throughout a period of time.
Perfect. Great. So I really like how you said that you don't have to spend a lot on Facebook ads. You're just trying to prove the concept, and then you can scale from there.
Absolutely. Right. So I didn't want to spend more than what it would cost me to get one sale. And I actually ended up spending way less. So the course was $597, around there. And I sold 3 copies of the course. So I knew I had one sale because one person for market research. And so I really wanted this to prove my concept and also to earn a profit. So I had 3 sales at $597. One person went into a payment plan. The other 2 paid in full. And I had 1 Tripwire sale. So I forgot to mention that. But after they registered for the webinar, I offered them a small course on how to create content systems in Trello. And it was just a $50 Tripwire. And it's like 5 videos. I had already recorded it. I had already sold it before, and it did well before.
Okay.
So that was the Tripwire. And 1 person took me up on that. And then 3 people bought the course. So that was around 10% conversion rate, right?
Right.
Not exactly, but around, right? Because I had 37 on the list. So I feel like that did really well. And even if, so I calculated the earnings per lead. This is the number that you need to know before you scale something. Okay. Earnings per lead is based on how many leads you got in, how many sales did you, like what was your total profit or how much money did you sell, right?
Right.
And my earnings per lead, I calculated it as if everybody who was on the email list was not on the Messenger list. So I actually added those 2 together just to be safe. Okay. Mm-hmm. And I calculated the earnings per lead to be about $25 a lead. So this way I know that if I spend $164 on Facebook ads again, I know that I'm going to make back way more. That way I know, like, okay, as long as I'm not spending more than $25 on Facebook ad leads, I know I'm going to be turning a profit.
Yes. I love that. I love the math so that you know how much you can pour into Facebook.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's my plan for scaling it up. And my plan, like end of the summer, my husband tells me we're moving and we have like 2 or 3 weeks to move. So once I move and settle at the end of this month, my plan is to do weekly webinars to scale this up.
Okay. Awesome. That's great. I mean, and this all came from a product that wasn't even written yet.
Yeah. Yeah. So I basically delivered it as I went. I didn't want to sell more copies until I had already created it, because I know that for me to commit to weekly webinars and try to also come up with the weekly content for them wasn't going to work out for me, because I just don't have that many hours in my day.
Mm-hmm. Great. And then whatever feedback you get from the people who are going through the beta, you'll just improve the course that way.
Exactly. And they already gave me some things that they wanted to see, right? So one of the things that they asked for was like a cheerleader email sequence. And they wanted to kind of have emails going through reminding them what module to work on that week and stuff like that. I had a Facebook group for them doing that, but they wanted emails as well, because they said they didn't get all the notifications. So that was one small tweak that they wanted. And it's exactly like you said, right? Whatever they needed, I'm going to be basing it off of that, whatever changes I make.
Beautiful. Perfect. Wow. So any final advice you would give to the listeners who they have this idea, they have this thing, they're letting perfectionism kind of hold them back a little bit. What advice would you give them to motivate them to just do it, per se?
I think the best piece of advice is like, you can't help anybody if you're waiting for something to be perfect. So a big part of what I do is help like impact-driven entrepreneurs. So it's like people who really want to help and serve people. And if you have an idea for a course or a program or something, a service of any kind, and you're holding it inside, you can't help anybody from that place. It takes you getting out there and moving through that perfectionism in order to be able to help and serve your people. And through the sale comes the service.
Right. I love that. I love that. I just had like a thought, if you were walking and you saw someone like about to fall off a cliff or something, they really don't care that you don't have the perfect equipment to help them out of a jam. They just want you to get your butt over there and help them from falling off the cliff. It doesn't have to be perfect.
Totally.
So I love that. I love that. People just really want help and you should serve them.
Yeah. And I feel like for me, selling this program was also a really great way to serve a different aspect of my audience. So normally I've been doing one-on-one coaching, but my one-on-one coaching program is a lot more expensive than this program. And so this allowed me to serve people that really needed my help, but probably couldn't afford my one-on-one yet. And so again, it's not about it being perfect. It's about them getting to the place that they need to go next. And it's totally like, a labor of love.
Right. I love that. I love that. So now this course that you're talking about, what's the name of it?
It's called the Impact Formula.
Okay. Awesome. And did you have anything to share? Like, how do people learn more about you?
Yeah. So you can find me at impactdrivenentrepreneur.com. And right on that page, you can actually download a freebie that I have, how to get your next paying client in the next 7 days. And yeah, that is probably the best way. And I have a Facebook group, the Impact Driven Entrepreneur.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. And I would love to have you back sometime.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right. Awesome.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for listening to the show. I appreciate every single one of you. If you haven't done so, subscribe on iTunes, and you can also find me on Instagram at April Reed. That's APRILLEREED. Talk to you next week.
Thanks for listening to the Webinar Hustlers Entrepreneur Podcast at www.aprilreed.com.